Okay. Imagine you're walking in a forest. You see life and vegetation all around you, and you spot something interesting in the dirt. Little stems that shoot from the ground, that sprout at the top of a flat cap, commonly known as a mushroom. They're one of the world's most interesting plants, mostly because it's not a plant at all. It's a fungus, and knowing which are safe to consume can be all it takes to either have a delicious mushroom dish or be on a journey through a truly psychedelic experience. Today, I will be sharing with you the history of magic mushrooms, the pros and cons of its consumption, religious aspects, and why you shouldn't be scared of this substance if curious. My main point is that I'll be going into a brief history of magic mushrooms. Historians have speculated that the psychedelic mushrooms have been consumed as long ago as 9,000 BC. Some of these theories have been proven by the discovery of rock paintings found in African indigenous cultures depicting the mushrooms. It's even known that in Mexico, the use of magic mushrooms can be traced back to Aztec civilizations, where they would actually consume the mushrooms themselves during ritualistic suicide or sacrifice. And now going into my subpoint, I'm going to be talking about a little bit more history, but more in depth. Jumping now thousands of years, we know now that Westerners were consuming the mushrooms around the time of like the 1950s, thanks to ethnomycologist R. Gordon Wasson. R. Gordon Wasson was traveling through Mexico to study mushrooms in 1955 and witnessed in the Sierra Mazateca in Oaxaca a ceremony where magic mushrooms were being used. The person who curated these ceremonies was a shaman woman by the name of Maria Sabina, who regularly consumed the mushrooms since she was 7 years old and went on to become one of the most famous figures because of the fact that she introduced magic mushrooms to the masses. Because Wasson was introduced to the properties of the magic mushrooms, he was able to bring back samples and in turn have the mushrooms become predominantly a part of the hippie movement. And now I will be telling you guys about different types of strains of magic mushrooms. In the most general sense, when talking about magic mushrooms, I am talking about mushrooms that contain psychoactive ingredient called psilocybin, also can be called psilocybin or psilocybe. There are over 180 different strains of psilocybin containing mushrooms, but for the sake of this presentation, I will only name the ones that are predominantly used in practice in the shaman practice in Oaxaca. The different types of strains are psilocybe cubensis or San Isidro, which are small bowl caps with thick stems. Almost all of these different mushrooms grow in clusters, so it's kind of hard to tell the difference. So most of most of how it's identified is through caps. And then we have the psilocybe mexicana or pajaritos, which are small clusters of potato-shaped caps and short stems, and psilocybe caerulensis or psilocybe zapotecorum, also known as durumbe. The caps that are large and flat and almost flip upwards like potato chips. And now I will be telling you guys about what they do specifically. What is psilocybin, you ask? It's a hallucinogen that activates serotonin receptors, usually in the prefrontal cortex, which is a part of the brain that affects mood, cognition, and perception. Mushrooms are much like LSD in the fact that they're both psychotropic drugs and produce most of their effects in the central nervous system. It can even be described as a shorter and less overwhelming LSD trip experience. In the words of howstuffworks.com, like LSD, magic mushrooms don't cause hallucinations or visions of things that aren't actually there. Instead, they distort the perfections of actual objects. So you feel a wavy sensation, you look at the ground and maybe you feel it breathing with you. So everybody has a different experience, but in most cases, it's just a natural distortion. So if I look at that, the podium over there, it may be doing some like swaying, but it's not going to turn into a rabbit. Okay. People might see different colors or come to feel distortion in taste, sound, and textures. And now I will talk to you guys about the different pros and cons of why people like it and why they don't like it. From a neutral perspective, psilocybin has both positive and negative physical and psychological effects. The quantity of the drug, of the past experiences and expectations of how the experience will take shape can all impact the effects of psilocybin. This has been said by Kathleen Davis of the Medical News Today. In terms of pros, since its discovery in 1957, the psychoactive drug has been experimented and has had the potential to treat a variety of psychiatric and behavioral disorders, even though it's not legal in California. In a quote from Healthline News, different things that it can treat include depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, cluster headaches, quitting smoking, alcohol addiction, or cancer-related or other end-of-life psychological distress. In terms of how it has been affecting society, Denver, Colorado, and Oregon in recent months have been trying to decriminalize the substance and make it legal in said states. Now for the cons, at the end of the day though, in terms of the negative side of the substance, it will forever be a Schedule I substance according to the Drug Enforcement Agency, which means that the drug is classified as having no currently accepted medical use and high potential for abuse. This is also a quote by healthline.com. Experts have reviewed that the substance can be very dangerous for a number of reasons if consumed incorrectly. Magic mushrooms can affect the cardiovascular system and can lead to increased blood pressure or irregular heartbeat. It also has the potential to cause serious and permanent psychological problems. Psilocybin definitely has the potential to give someone a bad trip or a negative experience while on the drug. Many people have said in experiences that they felt overwhelmed by a sensation of static electricity or vibrating, or just feel overwhelmed in general. Like you're so hypersensitive that you have all these different sounds, tastes, textures, touches, all at the same time, and it's a little hard to contain sometimes. Experts have reviewed that the substance can be very dangerous for a number of reasons. Oh, I already said that, sorry. Psilocybin can also be a lot more dangerous and harmful psychologically to a small percentage of people who have had experiences and episodes of psychosis or mania. Manic episodes if they present themselves as vulnerable in certain things they might see or think about. A general example of religious aspects of the magic mushroom derives from its famous origins in Mexico with the famous Maria Sabina. And I will be talking to you guys now about the religious aspects of this psilocybin mushroom. Maria Sabina has dubbed Wasson as the first white man in recorded history to eat the divine mushrooms. Wasson also found in his studies that in many cultures across the world, worshipped the mushrooms and had created elaborate religious ceremonies around eating the mushrooms. In Oaxaca, the mushroom ceremony is called the velada, which is an all-night commune with the god to heal the sick. She included that vomiting by the afflicted was considered a prime and essential part of the ceremony. Each participant would ingest psilocybin mushrooms as Sabina, who would take almost twice as much, chanted invocations to coax forth the divine. Being a lifelong Catholic, Sabina would blend Christian elements into Mazateca ritual as she guided mushroom eaters through the visions that Maria would relay throughout the trip. In conclusion, my means of providing a solution to the opinion of magic mushrooms is just to have an opinion about it. Whether my speech has instilled a newfound curiosity about the drug or scared you away entirely from ever trying it, my speech is merely a knowledge and information, is merely a means of knowledge and information, but not in any means a demand that you go out and try it. But only as a way to teach and help people understand that the Schedule I substance is doing a lot more than getting people high, and should be seen as a substance that needs to be allowed more time to study and perfect in order to finally integrate it into society for its positive qualities. Thank you.
So Jennifer, some words?
I guess I'll start with like the delivery aspects. I think you were doing, especially in like the history part, like a lot of reading, and your voice was good though. Like the way you said the words was good. It was pretty good, and maybe there was like kind of some kind of shifting. As for like the presentation part, kind of most of it was an informative speech. And you didn't really say like a strong opinion. I didn't really know your opinion till right at the very end. Or you're like, oh, I want people to have an opinion. Which I think you could have said that at the beginning, like saying, I want people to have an opinion. I'll look at some of the history that I think people should know, some of the effects of it, and some of the uses for it. Like, that would have kind of helped. Like, I think the things you had maybe could have been used to persuade, but you kind of didn't really use them that way. Yeah, and I think, like, again, some of it, there was a lot of, like, information that was really exact, but you weren't really quoting it from somewhere. Like, you said Helpline, like, once, I think, like, you weren't saying, like, where is this coming from exactly? That was kind of, I don't know, I would have liked more, like, kind of quotation of the source, or maybe a specific source rather than just kind of saying here's the history, like try to relate it, sort of put it, I don't know, in like a context. Yeah, I like maybe when you were talking about the effects, the podium thing was a good way of just kind of showing what it is and maybe what it would not be in like a humorous way. So I like that part, and you really kind of were able to like look away and really be natural about it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my main criticism of the content of the speech is exactly the same as Jennifer's. This is really an informative speech. Right at the very end, you've got an exit line that suggests what a potential persuasive speech would be on this. Then we need to have more information about why it is restricted, why we're not able to do research on this, why there are opportunities that are available here, and then we should be more open-minded about it. That, I think, could be a potential persuasive presentation. But the vast majority of this is just background information on the subject. I think it's a very interesting, informative presentation, and some of the historical data and the descriptive terms of the effects that it has, I thought you did a pretty good job on. But the end point is not clear, except to know about this particular subject. So I really felt like you're kind of missing the point. I'm trying to figure out, so what am I supposed to think or believe or do or value as a result of listening to your presentation? And I just know what I'm supposed to know, and that makes it sound like that it's pretty clearly an informative presentation. You signpost the structure when you're through the speech, so it's pretty well organized. I did hear a few source citations, but like I said, a lot of it's factual data, so I don't think that there's a lot of confusion about those kinds of things. Presentation issues, I think you probably know that you are a little bit limited because of your use of notes, but it's interesting because every time you stop using the notes and start talking to us, you're much more effective. I mean, it happens, several times each minute, but then you go right back to doing the reading kind of thing. So if you just knew what it was you were talking about, stopped worrying about getting everything exactly correct that you've written down and saying it the way you've got it there, and just talk to us, I think you'd be a lot more effective. Jennifer pointed out the example of talking about the podium. I thought that was a pretty straightforward way of visualizing the thing that you were talking about. You talked to us when you were giving that explanation. It's not something that you're having to read from the notes, and you relate to us really well, and that creates a lot more immediacy and engagement than what you're doing the rest of the time. All right, we'll keep that short. Thank you.